What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Green with Envy Postgame Live, part of the 617 podcast, proudly brought to you by Crowworthy, and hallelujah, hallelujah. The curse is over. We were 0 for 2 the first couple times we did this, but the Celtics get a win tonight, their first home win of the season. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in and joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of the podcast, the one and only Greg Benakis. How you feeling?
Yo, man, so relieved. So relieved. I was worried about the curse too, man. I was like, we're going to talk about this curse, right? If we lose this game. But it's over. The curse is over. The Green with Envy post-game live curse is done with. The Boston Celtics get their first win at home. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a short-lived curse. And to be honest, man, like I didn't realize how many road games that we had had. We've already had 7 road games to just 3 home games. And so going into this, I kind of forgot that we still didn't have a home win 3 weeks into the season. And so now it's kind of a relief because I didn't really think of this as a must-win game. Obviously, this was a nice win to get. The Raptors have been playing really well. They're 6-5. The East is starting to get a little bit of separation. There's starting to be some teams that are getting 3-4 games over 500. So for the Celtics to get back to 500, that's got to be, a big part of the rest of this week and over these next couple of games, even without JB, is making sure we get to 500, crawling over if we can. So I didn't want to say it was a must win on Twitter earlier, but I said it was a necessity because you can't go 0-4 at home. That's not a good omen.
Yeah, you can't go 0-4 and you can't fall 3 games under 500. Now we're 1 game away from going 500. And that's what we want, man. We just need to be hanging around 500 and hopefully, with the Bucks being shorthanded, we can get there next game.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. They've been banged up, not playing great. I think last time I checked, they were beating the Knicks. They may have already secured that win here. I'm not positive right now, but that's going to be a nice game on Friday night. Can't wait to get into that. But before we hop into the morning box score here, Greg, what are your initial thoughts walking away from that game? A much needed W for the squad.
The defensive intensity is great, man. The pairing of Marcus Smart with Josh Richardson, even though, we've been clamoring for more Nesmith. Like, I get why Ime is doing it. As long as there's not 2 bigs on the floor, I think that the lineup with Schroeder, Smart, Richardson, Tatum, and a big is just super disruptive. They play really well together on defense. So that was the thing that really stood out to me is how disruptive those 2 guards were. And Robert Williams obviously just dominated the game. And, we'll get into that in the morning box score for sure.
Yeah, our guy Lob having a huge night, especially in that first half. But yeah, it's not the prettiest basketball with this lineup, but it is effective. And there's a certain oddity to it, but it is working in its own way. So we'll talk more about that here in a minute. But let's go ahead and jump into it, man. This is Celtics got to win. We're feeling the good vibes. Let's get that morning box score going. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this all into us here. So for those of you listening live, feel free to go ahead and drop some comments, join in with us here. If you're listening to this in its podcast format, we do this for y'all each and every time we record after a game. As always, we want to throw y'all back to the days when Greg and I used to get together, open up the Globe, check out what Bob Ryan or Jackie Mack had to say, kind of scroll through the box scores, just give you a feel for what happened the night before. So let's kick it off here. Celtics with a big win tonight, 104-88 over the Toronto Raptors. Let's start with the Raptors here. And of course, Greg's man crush, Scotty Barnes, 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists for him on the night. He was an impressive looking rookie. We'll talk more about him as we kind of dive into this game because he was very impressive looking tonight, I thought. And we know Greg thinks that. If you've been listening, you know. Fred VanVleet chipped in 16.6 assists, 3 steals. OG Anunoby, 14, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. 6 of 25 from the Raptors from 3. Overall, their offensive output is going to be really tough for them throughout the season. Right, came into the game ranked only 22nd in points per game on the season, and you could tell throughout the game it was tough for them to get any momentum without there being turnovers on the other end. That will probably be something that continues for the Raptors going throughout the season. Flipping over to the good guys, let's check out the Celtics here tonight. We mentioned Lob Williams with a massive night, 8 of 11 from the field, 16 points, 13 rebounds. We'll talk more about him. Jayson Tatum, another not so great night shooting the ball from the field. When you look at the numbers, I don't think the shot selection was all that bad. Once again, we'll talk more about that, but 22, 12, and 7, borderline triple-double watch at certain points throughout the game from him. So any concerns about his passing that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, definitely a step in the right direction for him tonight. Dennis Schroeder, woo! What a fucking wild card this guy is. 20 points, but 8 turnovers to go along with it. He's Day Trader Dennis. That's what we're starting to call him around here. Day Trader Dennis. Josh Richardson, 15 points to Greg's earlier point here, that lineup, that chaos lineup was a big part of that. And Josh Richardson played a big role, both offensively and defensively for the Celtics. Couple of key stats here tonight: win the battle of the boards, 58-46. And then second chance points led by the aforementioned Lob Williams. Celtics win that 21-8. Greg, let's start with the Celtics. Let's hold off on the Scotty Barnes talk for a minute. I know
Man, I gotta do that
I
to
know
me.
I know you want to get into it, man. I know you do. I know that's your guy. That's the guy that you got your eye on here outside of the Celtics. But tonight was the Celtics night, first home win. Let's go with Lob Williams first, man, because in that first half, if the Raptors are going to go with this line, there's no center lineup where essentially they're
Mhm.
going with four wings and Fred VanVleet. That's essentially what they're doing. They're very versatile, very switchable. They're extremely active, and when it's working right, they cause a lot of problems. But if they're going to do that, that leaves them exposed on the boards. Lob and Al both had their way early, and Lob was more aggressive. I think I've seen him, especially in that first half, in a while, and did something that I talked about a couple of weeks ago that you've started to see him improve as the season has gone on. When he gets a rebound, looking to go right back up and go back
Mhm.
up with aggression to score and not just reset and kick the ball out. So really impressed with Lob Williams tonight. What'd you see out there?
Yeah, he dominated on the offensive glass. It reminded me of the game last year when we played against the Charlotte Hornets, and the Charlotte Hornets just dominated us in a game without Robert Williams, right? And all their smaller bigs, right? The PJ Washingtons and Miles Bridges of the world just looked like these amazing athletes that we just couldn't handle. And the next time we played the Charlotte Hornets, Robert Williams was back, and immediately his elite athleticism raises the floor of our athleticism to the point where like we now have the most athletic dude on the court at all times. And when you have the most athletic dude on the court, even someone like Precious Achua, who is a real problem for a lot of teams with his energy, couldn't match Robert Williams' athleticism. And that's kind of what I saw tonight. That's what this game reminded me of, is that game in Charlotte last year, because they could not handle his size, man. He was just so bouncy on both ends of the floor. As you said, right, when he gets those rebounds, going right back up to dunk it. He was just the most athletic dude on the court, and that's what you want out of Robert Williams. He played, let's see, how many minutes did he play tonight? Over 30, 32,
Yeah,
33
just about
minutes.
33 minutes. Yeah.
33 minutes, which is what we need from that dude, right? He's not, I think before the season, we were saying, what is his over under for minutes going to be? Is it going to be, I think we put it at 25, and he's been playing in the 30s, man. And that's what we need out of this dude. We need him to be a force. We need him to have the gravity and the vertical spacing that he provides. And he did it. He did it perfectly tonight. Got a
You
burp.
getting choked up over there. No, you're totally right. And what it also allows Ime and the Celtics to do, and tonight was a game that maybe, and I thought he played fine, but it allows you to sit Al Horford for some extra minutes. Let's
Yeah.
be real. Old man Al. They talked about, I love one of the
24 minutes.
anecdotes during the game where they talked about, I don't know who Grant Williams' cousin was, but that he met Al Horford when he was 8 years old when he played on the Hawks. So, I mean,
Mhm.
Al Horford, 35 years old, not old in real life, but old in basketball terms. And so being able to give him a break with how great he's looked early in the season, being able to save his legs some minutes without having to fully take him off the court for a game, that's an added little bonus that the Celtics get here going forward. As you said, looking ahead to Friday night, where certainly Al's going to have to spend some time guarding Giannis at different points. So you're going to want to have him fully rested and ready to go. So Robert Williams' excellent play has so many added benefits for this team. And, through these first, 11 games now, Celtics sit at 5-6. I have been so impressed with Lob, and I know we were worried about his health. That's the main thing. That when he signed that extension, it was, what's Rob's health going to be, and if he can stay healthy, and this is the production you're getting, where you can really run him out there 28 to 33 minutes, somewhere in that range every night. That is just a massive bonus for the Celtics here. Looking around, let's talk a little bit about Josh Richardson, man. I
Okay.
feel like he's had a good
He's
last
redeeming
couple of
himself.
games. Exactly. And it's funny, he does it in real time, dude. A couple of offensive mistakes where he then would run back and make defensive plays to go ahead and make up for it. But let me just read you his stat line here. He also played 33 minutes tonight, got a good chunk of those Jaylen Brown minutes that were being distributed around with him out tonight. 5 of 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, got to the line 4 different times, had 15 points to go along with it, as I mentioned, 3 rebounds, just highly active, man. But him with that lineup of Smart, Schroeder, Tatum, and Lob, It's I got to look at the defensive numbers of what they've been throughout the season, but at least over the last 2 games, that's been the lineup that Ime has seemingly leaned on when times get tough.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm going to go back to another game. The way he was playing tonight reminded me of the game against Philly back in the day, where I think Philly ended up winning the game late, and Josh Richardson put pressure on Jaylen Brown full court, and Jaylen ended up falling down, and we threw the ball out of bounds on an inbounds, a key inbounds late in the game, and he just looked like, one of the most dominant defensive guards in the league in that game. He just like really, really gave us trouble in that game, and that's what he's been doing, man. Like his force that he's playing with on the defensive end, he knows that there are young guys on the team that probably deserve minutes, and he has to bring it every single night in order to stay on the court. Well, maybe not. Maybe Ime would just play him regardless. But but he's deserving to stay on the court, man. It's kind of hard to take a guy off the court who's bringing that much on the defensive end. And if his shot is falling, man, if he's hitting 5 of 9, 2 of 4 from 3, like, I mean, why not have him on the court? Because his defensive IQ and his defensive intensity, him and Marcus Smart are really turning into something special on the defensive end of the court. I would love to see more than what Aaron Nesmith gave us tonight, but Josh Richardson, he deserves to play. Romeo Langford also had a nice little stint in there.
Romeo had a
his
great
19
night.
minutes that he played. He played 19 and a half minutes tonight. 2 corner threes. And then what's that one dude's name that blocked his shit out of bounds?
I meant to look it up. Let me pull it up here real quick. He's so long. It's Blanton. Where's this guy's
Delano
name
Banton.
here? Yeah, Delano Blanton.
Rookie?
Delano Banton. I believe so. I heard his name mentioned on a podcast earlier this week, and I was like, okay, we're playing the Raptors. I need to check this guy out. Man, he once again, the Raptors themselves, like when their defense is in tune, like they had a couple of stretches tonight throughout the game, and we were talking off air before we came on here how we felt, because the Celtics really had a double-digit lead seemingly for the majority of this game, where there was a good amount of space between them and the Raptors, but there was a handful of moments early on, and then a little bit in the third quarter, especially where the Celtics had, I think 5 or 6 turnovers in the quarter itself, where their length felt very connected, and they were very springy. They were very active. Hands were just everywhere. And that 3-point shot that you're referring to, when he came out of seemingly nowhere and swatted it a couple rows up, was very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the Raptors, they can't shoot for shit. That's why I think my Pascal Siakam for Kevin Love idea or something along those lines could actually work out. We'll take a look at that. I think they have to do something about that lineup, though, because starting that no center lineup, I just don't think it's going to work, considering that no center lineup also doesn't have like a ton of shooting on the floor. I know Van Vliet can stroke it. Gary Trent is a theoretical shooter. But Siakam, Barnes, and Anunoby, I don't know that they necessarily have the gravity they're going to need. I think they're probably going to have to go to Precious at the 5 or something like that, just to get a true big out there. But with that length, I think that's a good transition to talk about Dennis Schroeder's 8 turnovers, right?
Yeah.
My buddy Matt Manning, shout out Matt Manning. Don't know if you're watching, don't know if you're listening, but I love you, bud. He was texting me during the game, and he was like, "What the fuck is Ime doing leaving Schroeder in the game? Like, put Pritchard in the game." Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is the game for Pritchard because of how lengthy the Raptors are. But Dennis Schroeder also was struggling against that length. Whenever they put that pressure on him, it reminded me a lot of Kemba last year when he would play against length and he would just turn the ball over all the time, right? Is that what you were thinking too, my man?
Well, I've had pretty much all the thoughts that you just had while I was sitting on the couch. I had the same thoughts.
Yeah, and it's really hard for an undersized guard in a league that is getting more and more physical seemingly by the game to just like maintain control over the ball when you got these 6'8" behemoths getting into your body as you're trying to hold your line driving to the basket. It's not an easy thing to do, and it makes sense as to why he's losing control of the ball. He also had a couple bad passes that he just like threw the ball right into an extended hand in a passing lane. He's not the greatest passer in the world, and Ime also was playing him the whole first quarter and third quarter and like 3 minutes into the second quarter and fourth quarter. So he's playing a 15-minute stint. he's probably exhausted.
You
And
could
I'm
tell he
wondering,
looked exhausted. I mean, Mike Gorman even commented on that at one point, and you noticed. I'm trying to think of how much time was left, but at one point the ball had gone out of bounds, and he clearly could have grabbed the ball, but he let it roll like behind the
mhm,
stanchion, and then just sat there bent over, so that the ref had to go pick it up. And then Mike and Scal kind of talked about as he's coming back up the court, you could kind of see him gasping for breath a little bit. So it was interesting for Ime to let him go for that long of a stretch. I mean, part of it I know was that while we don't have Jaylen Brown available for the next week or two, if Jayson Tatum's going to be out and he'll obviously need to take some breathers and be off the court for certain parts, like you're going to kind of have Schroeder on there to get someone who's going to be aggressive and assertive as far as
mhm.
scoring the basketball. So I understand that, but yeah, those long stretches felt like. I don't know. There could have been a better way to stagger those where he could have got a few extra breathers. To your point, I wasn't really going to harp too much on my, objective confusion as to why Peyton Pritchard in general is not playing, because tonight did not feel
Mhm.
like the greatest matchup for him. And I had that same thought. And I wonder if the Bucks will kind of be the same thing. I mean, it kind of depends on the lineups that they're rolling out, who's healthy, because they've been injured a bunch. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, tonight was a night where it felt like it was okay not to play Peyton Pritchard as much.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a really weird, interesting game for Dennis Schroeder. I've talked about this. Day trading Dennis, he's up, he's down, he's consistently inconsistent within, I feel like, almost every game that I've watched. And then at the end of the day, I mean, minus those obviously 8 turnovers is just way too much. But at the end of the day, he still ended up with 20 points, 8 of 15 shooting, 2 of 3
Yeah.
from 3. Like, he put some rim pressure on there, which led to offensive rebounds, led to some kickouts, led to some, swinging the ball for some open looks. So, the 8 turnovers is concerning and it's not great. But there is still stuff that you can take away from Dennis Schroeder to say that he helped us get to the eventual goal of getting that win.
Yeah, yeah. I thought he played really well aside from those turnovers. And the issue with those turnovers, they were all like glaringly on him. It was like unforced
Yeah.
errors where it's like, oh man, like what are you doing in that moment? Like what was even your thought process going into that pass or going into that drive? But a guy that we haven't talked about yet who contributed big time to this win is Jayson Tatum. And I think we got to
Yeah.
talk about him because this is 2 games in a row in which he looks more like the Jayson Tatum that we expect him to look like. And this was the Jayson Tatum that was a distributor and a facilitator. And he did a great job, especially earlier in the game, in a pick and roll, snaking to the middle, keeping a guy on his hip and kicking the ball opposite. That was something Scal kept talking about in the second half. He was like, the Celtics have not driven from a wing and kicked the ball to the opposite corner in the second half. And that's something that Tatum was single-handedly doing in the first half. I was really impressed with Tatum, although his shot wasn't falling. It seemed like, he hit that first shot and it looked like he was going to be hot. And then like one of his next shots was like a really difficult step back 3 and he missed
Hmm.
it. And then from there, it seemed like he was kind of just off rhythm. But it's tough, man. The Raptors are a super long team and they're in his airspace the whole game. They're being super physical with him. So it makes sense that he's going to have probably more inefficient shooting nights this year until he gets used to that physicality. Because the referees, I don't know if you like the way the game is being called, man, but the referees are just letting them get away with fucking everything. It's crazy right now. And like, there are a couple times I'm worried Jayson Tatum's going to get hurt because he's driving the ball to the basket really, really strong. He was holding his line great tonight. And the Raptors have all these crazy uber athletes, and they were just slamming into him. And he's falling to the ground. He's like holding his knee a couple times. And I think at some point the referee's got to start calling a couple more calls because these dudes are like really leaning into this physicality. And I mean, we saw it the other night in the fucking Jokic
Jokic Morris.
Marquise
Oh my
Morris thing.
God.
That was crazy, dude.
I know
And it was
it's
really impressive that this nobody fought tonight, especially after that Malachi Flynn tackled Marcus Smart in the open court.
Yeah, that one, it was funny though. With the Malachi Flynn and Marcus Smart situation, I thought it was funny because you could tell Marcus knew what was coming, and he kind of
Mhm.
rolled his eyes and then leaned into it
Yeah,
a little bit and just kind of like he like embraced himself for the fall. It was just like a
yeah,
heavenly release down to the
like
ground. So that one,
onto a bed. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like he was doing like I think it's called like a pratfall or something when they do it in Hollywood or some shit like that. But yeah, with the physicality, man, it's really interesting because number one. I enjoy part of it because the flow of the game is so much better.
Mhm.
But number two, it really is affecting a lot of these guys. You heard Dame Lillard talking about it last night after the Blazers game. Harden's talked about it. You can see the numbers with Trae Young. With Tatum, a guy who we've been asking to get more and more to the line. I to your point, you're right. I do think he's driving the ball. At certain point, some of these calls do have to be made because there was so many calls that were just let go tonight that
Mhm.
are just fouls, man. Like I get letting go. Like we talked maybe it was the last episode, I think, about going up with the intention to score. And so
Mhm.
I love that they're wanting players to do that, but when they do that and they're fouled, you still have to call it. Like it's
Yeah.
still fouls that are happening. Al got hacked at one point earlier tonight, and he's usually a guy that like when he complains, Al usually has a point. He's kind of like one of those like really good hitters in baseball who know the
Mhm.
strike zone so
The
well, like a
Schwarbers of
JD
the world.
Martinez or like a Tony Gwynn who's just like if they look back at the umpire and they give him the stare down, they give him the death eyes, the stink eye,
Mhm.
they know the
Those
strike zone. They know
beautiful,
it inside
beautiful
and out.
stink eyes.
Al
Yeah.
Horford with the beautiful stink eyes. Yeah,
Yeah, the Al
exactly.
those beautiful eyes.
But so I do like it, man. I like the fact that it's a little bit more physical, but there's got to be some that are called because I look at this here and I'm looking at your boy Scotty Barnes here. He got to the line 8 times tonight. And
Mhm.
not that he didn't even deserve it, not that he didn't deserve it, but if he's getting to the line 8 times, and we're looking at Jayson Tatum here only getting to the line 4, and we feel like he was being pretty aggressive, he was mixing it up on the inside. Like you've got to find a balance to this. It can't be
Mhm.
Scotty Barnes; he's unknown, so he doesn't have that previous, that previous bias against him for, Jayson Tatum complaining about calls or whatever. Not that Jayson Tatum's the worst defender in the league. A lot of guys do it, but it's something we have noted before. And so they got to find that balance here because there was probably a few too many calls that got let go
Yeah, because Scotty Barnes, I love Scotty Barnes. We can talk about Scotty Barnes now. But like
tonight.
8 free throws, you said? That dude, think about the way he plays. He's just like a straight line drive to the basket and he's like trying to dunk on everybody all the time. So like you're going to get calls that way. But Scotty Barnes also isn't like the most skilled dude yet in terms of like offensive polish, where Jayson Tatum is probably like upper echelon offensive polish, right? So like there has to be some sort of middle ground for the guys that are Scotty Barnes, who just drive straight line to the basket and try to dunk on people, and Jayson Tatum, who, generally try to avoid contact and do some other stuff besides just drive to the basket. So hopefully the referees get around to that. But let's talk about Scotty Barnes, man, because coming into the year, I didn't really know anything
What do
about
you
this
mean? Let's
kid.
talk about him. I put the minute on the. I put it down here on the banner. You got a minute. You got 30
That's what
seconds
you were
left.
doing.
Yeah.
I'm
What do you
like,
think
yo,
I'm
what?
doing over here?
I thought you were texting or some shit. All right, so yeah, the Scotty Barnes minute presented by Manekas Music. There's an underscore in there, but yeah, dude, this kid before the year, with the first time I saw him play against the Celtics in the preseason, I was like, Sean Marion is his floor, which looks like it's probably true. And I said, he reminds me of year 2 Giannis. And I know Jonathan Sharks called me crazy, and he said Scotty Barnes is a good player, but Sean Marion's a Hall of Famer. Listen, Scotty Barnes is really fucking good already. Well, you know what went through my head as we were watching the game? It's like, right now, who would you rather have on your team? Like, take all the bullshit out of it. Ben
Scotty
Simmons or
Barnes or
Scotty
Sean
Barnes?
Marion? I'll take Scotty
No, no, no,
Barnes.
no, no, no. Ben Simmons or Scotty Barnes?
I mean, listen. You got me at least thinking about it, which is
The
the
fact
point of
that
the
you,
exercise.
yeah,
But
the fact that you
part of
paused.
that is the bias against Ben Simmons, and as much as I feel like I think his value's gone too far below what he is as an actual player, your point is well made.
Dude, Scotty Barnes and pushing the ball in transition and then like actually making something happen out of pushing the ball in transition reminded me a lot of Ben Simmons. That's why I'm bringing it up, because I like Ben Simmons as a player. Like, Scotty Barnes reminded me a lot of him tonight. He's not the greatest shooter in the world, but he's not afraid to shoot like Ben is. And then just like his physicality, man, on the defensive end, and his physicality on rebounding. He's got a great IQ. I think it was on the low post. They talked about his like basketball nervous system. They said he has like a really good basketball nervous system, and then he kind of just stays calm throughout the game. And the way he moves on the court, man, he really does kind of remind me of Giannis, who also reminds me of Ben Simmons in the way that they just like really, really push the ball all the time, full motor, and they're not going to stop attacking you. And I was just really impressed with him, dude. To me, he's clear-cut rookie of the year. Evan Mobley is probably number 2
Mm,
in my book. I think Evan Mobley
We're going to see
we
Evan
can,
Mobley here coming up, so
yeah.
you'll have a direct comparison. We play the Cavs on Saturday and then again on Monday. So, and the Cavs, I mean, I think the Cavs pulled off another win tonight as well. Oh no, they Wizards came back late to go ahead and get that one from them, but Cavs are looking somewhat legit to start the season for real.
And to be fair, I've only watched one Evan Mobley game, and then I've seen highlights of him. I've watched like almost every Raptors game because I love Barnes. So like, I just love everything Scotty Barnes brings to the table. He was great tonight. I didn't understand why they sat him for so long.
Yeah.
To that stretch down and then when he came back, he wasn't really that effective. But yeah, it was a great game overall, man. I was really happy with the way the Celtics played. Jayson Tatum was balling out. Robert Williams, who said before, absolutely dominated the game with his physicality. And then we haven't talked about Marcus Smart. You want to talk about Marcus a little bit?
Yeah, we can hit on Marcus here for a little bit. He had a kind of a rocky start to the game, but I thought I did a really nice job of calming down and then bringing it back full circle. I thought he had six assists in the night to go with 13 points. I thought after a couple of initial questionable decisions he made in the first quarter, he had a really nice game and made a couple of like real Marcus plays. Like I think it was in the fourth quarter, that tie up he got and then won the jump ball against OG Anunoby. That was just like a quintessential, that's Marcus Smart. That's the reason that even when I get frustrated with him shooting a horrible corner three in the first quarter, I've got to live with it because he makes those plays in winning time.
Yeah, and this is something I think Bill Simmons brought it up on his pod. It may have been KOC. They talked about how Marcus just like isn't affecting energy on the court like he used to. And that's something I actually noticed in the last couple of games. It seems like the energy and the hustle plays that Marcus is making now is like now driving that energy back into the team, is like leading to momentum for the team. I think that was the point they were trying to make, is that when Marcus makes a hustle play, it doesn't then snowball into other guys making hustle plays and like change momentum in the game. But then I was also thinking about that comment. Like the last 2 years were in the bubble and then a year without fans. So like it kind of makes sense that those energy plays might not create as much momentum because they don't get the crowd. They weren't getting the crowd involved. And now he is making plays that is getting the crowd involved, pumping everybody up. And as much as there are, people that really dislike Marcus, I think a majority of Celtics fans, especially more casual Celtics fans, love Marcus because of what he embodies and like the blue collar attitude that he brings to the team. So what he was doing on the floor tonight, I think was affecting energy in the building. And I love the way he played, man. Like I said earlier, that defense that he and Josh Richardson are bringing, he looks like first team all defense Marcus again. And that's going to be big because the way that Ime wants to play, all those guys are going to have to play bigger than they are. And tonight, against a team that was really athletic, all of them were able to man up and guard those dudes.
Yeah, I think Marcus Smart's heading in the right direction. Offensively, his shot, he ended up 5 of 12 after a really rough start. So, kudos to him for, like I said, turning it around from at least with his shot, took the right shots later in the game. But right now, I'm looking at this score sheet here. I should mention, see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Celtics in double figures. So once again, another really good team win for the Celtics, much like that Miami game, a true team effort where you're getting different pieces from all different areas contributing to it. Celtics will be back at it on Friday night against the Milwaukee Bucks. But of course, there's something we got to talk about before we let y'all go and get out of here. Since the last time that we dropped a pod for y'all, which I believe was on Sunday night, Monday morning, Shams Charania of The Athletic dropped the Ben Simmons rumors to the Celtics. So it is what it is. We're going to talk about it. I had a chance to get off some of my thoughts and opinions on it, hanging out with our guy, Adam Taylor, over on the Celtics blog podcast. So I'm going to defer to you on this one, Greg. I'm going to get us started, and then I'll chime in with my own thoughts here.
I mean, dude, it's so fucking obvious what it was about. Like when you read the report, it was clear that there was like some sort of conversation, and then the Sixers said, "Oh, well, those conversations need to start with Jaylen Brown." And when the Celtics were like, "No," then the conversation stopped. Like it's a non-report report. Like,
yeah,
clearly it's one of those things that we're not very privy to, but like. Guys have guys within offices and they have their guys within the media that they leak stuff to. And this was probably one of those things where like somebody in the Sixers front office wanted this report out there and they went to Shams because he's probably their guy and they have a good relationship. And they wanted to put that out there because they wanted to send out some feelers and see like what that might do. And like in the case that the Celtics implode, like maybe Jaylen Brown's on the market, but that's not going to happen, man.
Yeah.
So if we want to get Ben Simmons on the Celtics, which I'm not opposed to, because I actually think he would be great on the Celtics playing with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it has to be for ancillary pieces, and that's not something the Sixers are going to do. So to
Yeah.
me, it's a non-conversation.
Yeah, it's a non-story story. To me, it's definitely Daryl Morey or someone in the Sixers organization doing that. Like you talked about, networking on the back end to get this out there, and almost by association, keep the narrative of like, hey, Simmons and Jaylen Brown being talked about. Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
Simmons and Dame Lillard. That's like it's like, dude, Simmons is not his value right now as a player. I think Simmons's value has been degraded to a point that's at times laughable when you see people like, nope, I'm only giving up Marcus Smart and Romeo Langford. That's the only
Yeah.
deal I would do. I get it. Like to your point, to me, ancillary pieces, you're looking at, maybe something along the lines of the Russell Westbrook trade where it's like 3 solid role players or something
Mm-hmm.
like that in a pick. Maybe that's something they end up doing. Who knows? That's not what Daryl Morey's a big game hunter. That's not what he's going for. So for him, he's trying to keep that value by association kind of going through the media. And like you said, to your point, of course the Celtics are interested. Every team should be interested in a guy that was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, that you can see he's clearly got the yips or something going on,
Mm-hmm.
mentally that's preventing him from doing certain aspects. But he's one of the best passers, one of the best creators, one of the best defenders in the league. He's like 6'11", can handle the ball, can do so many dynamic things that really can make a difference if you put him in the right situation, that most teams should be calling, because if the price is right, teams should be pulling the trigger on this. But Daryl Morey wants, he's going to play this as long as he can. We talked about this a while ago. I think there's going to be a point come sometime between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, like you and I talked about, where they're going to have to do something, because you can't waste a full year of Joel Embiid. But
Imagine if
that's
they
all this
do.
really is. That's all this is.
Imagine if they do. And the Sixers are playing great basketball. I know
They
Embiid's
are.
out right now, but it makes sense that they're playing well because now they have a lineup that makes sense, because Ben Simmons and Joel
Yeah.
Embiid do not make sense together. So they were able to put floor spacers around Joel Embiid,
Yeah.
which is kind of best case scenario. So if you see right now, if you're Daryl Morey and you're like, oh shoot, like Joel Embiid and floor space works. Well, okay, now why don't you trade Ben Simmons for a premier floor spacer?
Oh, Jaylen Brown's a great fit for the Sixers. I see why he would want to do it. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm not even talking about JB anymore. I'm just talking like in general.
Yeah.
Like who would you want to get? So like I know you were a fan of the Ben for CJ McCollum trade, and the Trailblazers look terrible. So
Yeah.
maybe that's a deal. Ben Simmons for Buddy Hield. That's another name that's been floated out there.
I've got an ironically sneaky team out there for you.
Hit me with it.
Atlanta Hawks.
Who'd be the trade?
I'd have to look into it more. But they have a surplus of wing players right now, where you look at Bogdanovich, you look at Herter, you look at Reddish, you look at DeAndre Hunter. Now they've already paid Bogdanovich has got some, and they got Gallinari as well. They've got some pieces that they can move. Gallinari has a high level contract, high value contract. They just paid Herter. Bogdanovich they signed in the offseason, and then Reddish and Hunter both need to get paid in the near future. You're not going to be able to pay all of them. You've got Capella on the books. You've got obviously Trae Young. You just paid John Collins. So, and ironically enough, obviously the Hawks is the team that eliminated the Sixers with the famous Ben Simmons non-dunk. So I think it's funny, but I think they could be a team, and they're another team that's struggling. And that's part of where I do see the Celtics part of this report, where Morey's going to target teams that are not hitting their expectations, that are having players only meetings, that are calling each other out in the media. Like he's going to look for that type. And that's why I think the Trailblazers, who you mentioned, and then a team like the Hawks, which would just make it hilarious that this story comes all the way full circle if you were to end up. I think they could be a dark horse team to get involved here.
Yeah, and I mean, I like a lot of those guys on the Hawks roster. It's not working out this year. Cam Reddish, I think he needs to be freed. I think he's a guy that with big minutes and a big role on a team could make a difference. He looks ready. I would love to see Cam Reddish on the Celtics. I would love to just see him anywhere other than Atlanta right now, because I don't think it's going to work out for him. The fact that they paid Herter and they didn't pay him, I'm not really sure what that means. But I think Cam Reddish is somebody that if he gets traded, you'll see him like really break out.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a guy with a ton of upside. I know
Mhm.
he missed quite a bit of time last year, and so they weren't quite sure. He got back into the playoffs at the very end and made a mark. And that's where people were looking at this team like, damn, this team is really deep. And they started the year 3-1, came out
Yeah.
looking like, all right, they're gonna play off this playoff that they just had and keep it rolling. But since then, they've sputtered. We'll see them next week, I believe, actually. So that'll
Okay.
be another interesting piece for us to keep an eye on here, see where the Hawks are at. But I think that's going to do it for our show tonight. That's going to put a bow on this one. Once again, Celtics walk away with their first home victory of the year, 104-88 over the Toronto Raptors. We appreciate all of you that have tuned into us live here, whether that's on Twitter, YouTube. We're going to be doing this more often. So as y'all are following us, just be ready for us to hop on here. We want y'all to jump in, interact with us. We'd love to do that. We're going to have some guests coming up for y'all here over the next few weeks. A lot of big things going here, man. So I'm really excited about what the future holds for the Celtics. They got the Bucks on Friday night, then a back-to-back against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday, and then playing them again on Monday. So going to get a look at Giannis and Evan Mobley coming up here.
Mm.
Excited for the next slate of games. Is there anything else you got here, Greg, before we sign off?
The curse is broken.
The curse is broken. It's done, baby. The Celtics got to win one more game away from 500. We are crawling. We are getting there. Appreciate y'all tuning in, y'all listening to the podcast. As always, subscribe, rate, review, follow, 5-star rating. Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your uncle, tell your auntie, tell your Uber Eats driver, tell your Lyft driver, tell your bartender, tell anybody that you're talking to. We really appreciate y'all spreading the good vibes for Green with Envy and the 617 podcast via word of mouth. Shout out to Ludacris. Greg, give us your final thoughts and then send us on out of here as you always do.
You did a great job, man. I don't have any more final thoughts. Everybody that's watching live, everyone that's watching live, that's going to do it for us. But if you're listening on the podcast, you're going to hear my band down here in Austin, Texas. We are called Black Sheep Optimists, and this one is called Tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.